Hello, guys, and welcome to the show. Listen, interest rates and the U.S. bond yields are climbing today. This is an alert situation, and the reason why is because today alone, they've made it over 10 basis points. Unfreaking believable. Now, I've been expecting this for a long time. I'm going to tell you what the ramifications are of all this. I'm going to get right into a talk about all this and what to expect. We are coming up for a crisis like you've never witnessed in your lifetimes. And not in your parents' lifetimes. Your grandparents have witnessed something that's going to be what this is going to be like. Got to go back to your grandparents. So stay tuned. Coming right up. Hello, guys. Welcome back to the show. Uh, we're heading toward an awful crisis. And bond yields, this is the thing. You got to watch the bond market. Watch the bond market. Watch the bond market. This well, going back to the basics of what this is all about, you have to go back to the year around 1914, 1913, when the Federal Reserve was first established. And the men that established it, they didn't take into consideration that eventually the world would grow to a point where credit would have to contract. The Federal Reserve and the monetary system was set up in a way so that the monetary base would always continue to expand. And back in those days, it wasn't a big problem because they were exploring the deepest, darkest of the African continent back in 1913 and stuff, and they were still going in and they were expanding industry and they were expanding everything. And the world was not reached a point of saturation. They set up this system for a world that would have infinite growth. But our planet is not infinite. Our planet is finite. And what's happened is the growth contracted. Worldwide economic growth has actually been in contraction. And I know these countries will say that they have a certain amount of expansion of their economic sector, but that is all on paper. Ever since 2008 till now, we've been either going along level or slightly contracting. Now, 2008 was a huge contraction of the whole world. And it started to contract the economic base. But the economic base is not designed that way. If you contract the credit expansion, if you contract it too much, you not only go into a recession, that's the first stage of recession, but you go into a depression. And the depression will get worse and worse and worse until that contraction, which is called a deflation, will get to the point where it starves all of us to death. Quite literally. If it's allowed to continue. But it's not allowed to continue because also the way it's set up is they can expand the monetary base. So in 2008, that's what they did. The world contracted, but what they did is they artificially expanded the monetary system as if there was no contraction. They set a cycle in motion when they did that. And what the cycle is an expansion contraction. Well, they have that cycle and they call it the credit cycle. But this is no ordinary credit cycle. What this actually is a out of control runaway train. These expansions and contractions are almost like when you have volatility in a market. This is a very volatile expansion and contraction cycle that we're caught in now, and we can't get out of it. It's a death loop. And what I mean by that is the expansion and contractions are going to get closer and closer together until they destroy the whole system. So in 2008, there was a contraction. Now the contractions don't last long. It's almost like a person that's sick when they have a stomach problem, a stomach flu, and all of a sudden they start to feel nauseous, like they're going to throw up. That doesn't last long. Then they puke, right? And then they start to feel better for a little while, and then it comes back. Well, that's what's happened. We've been through the contraction. The contraction in 2008 didn't last long. They came into the aid with stimulus packages, and they basically medicated it. But now we're setting up for a bigger contraction. This contraction is going to be bigger than 2008. It's going to require more stimulus to get it out, and they're going to have to get us out. You know, I mean, it's just like a good old boy that's stuck in the woods down the swamp, you know, and his truck is stuck down there in the swamp, you know, and it's sinking into the mud. He's not going to leave it there. He's going to take chains and get some other vehicle down in there that's got a winch on it, and he's going to get that truck out of there, for crying out loud. You know? He's not going to leave it there. That's the way with the Fed. When this system gets stuck and gets bogged down right now, and we go into this credit contraction, that's where we're headed fast. I mean, we're heading into it right fast. We've been through the expansion. The Fed is actually causing this to happen by withdrawing all this liquidity out of the system, called quantitative tightening. They started slow and everything, but now it's getting to the point where it's starting to really affect the bond market. This is when she's going to blow, boys. This is the last signal. The mark is 3.25 on the 10-year. Once we exceed that mark, she's ready to blow, right? And here's the thing. This is going to be like nothing you've ever experienced before, but it's not going to last long. But this is why I've been telling you guys to get your $5 bills. Fiat. Cash. $5 bills. And why $5 bills is because $1 they don't go far enough. You want to buy a few groceries and stuff and pay for it with ones, they don't cut it. And during this crisis, 20s and 10s might actually be too big because people won't be able to make change. $5 just kind of fits that spot, you know, it fits that spot. So here's the thing, guys. We're heading right smack into this crisis. We're not going to get out of it. It's getting ready to start. And you got to have a few things prepared for yourself. A little bit of food, water, and $5 bills put away. It wouldn't be a bad idea because this thing might get pretty bad. But they're going to come to the rescue. And when they come to the rescue, they're going to flood the system with money. And last time they did this in 2008, they were a little bit careful because 2008 was not as bad as this is going to be. This is going to be far worse than 2008. And this time, they're not going to have the ability to be careful. They're going to have to step over the boundary this time. This time, they're going to have to really commit themselves to monetary stimulus in order to get us out of this crisis. And when they do that, this is going to be the turnaround for the dollar. And so that's why you don't want too many $5 bills because it's going to turn to mush. So whatever $5 bills you got left over are going to turn to mush. It's going to turn sour on the dollar. But we are going to go into an economic expansion after the crisis is over, after this up-and-coming contraction is over. We're going to go into an economic recovery, a real one. Now, back when the 2008 crisis happened, we went into that recession. They call it a recession. Actually, it was a depression. They pulled us out of it with monetary stimulus. They bailed out all the banks. They almost caused an economic recovery. They come so close with all of that stimulus, dumping all that money into the system. They come so close to causing an economic recovery, it wasn't even funny. In fact, they touted and said they had an economic recovery. And an awful lot of people bought it, and the reason why they bought it was there was some truth to it. I mean, it wasn't a real economic recovery. It was kind of like a head fake. It was kind of like, it was somewhat of an economic recovery. But this time, the stimulus is going to be so much bigger and so much brighter and so much stronger, and they have to make it bigger, brighter, and stronger in order to get us out of this hole that we're stuck in. It's going to take a bigger winch this time to pull the truck out, because this time we're going to be in quicksand. This time that they're going to really bring on an economic recovery after it's over. But at the same time, the beginning seeds will have been planted for the hyperinflation. The same seeds that's going to create the economic recovery are going to create a loss of confidence in the fiat currencies. This is when the cryptocurrencies are going to shine like never before. Exponential growth in the cryptocurrencies. And the silver and gold are going to take off, but they're never going to become an actual currency again. They're always going to maintain their position, the same position they have now in relation to the dollar. It's going to be transferred over, and it's going to hold that position in relation to cryptocurrencies. So it's going to be similar to what it is now, except the price is going to be exponentially higher for gold and silver. It's going to go up unchecked during this real economic recovery that we're going to have after they stimulate and the confidence is lost in the dollar. Gold and silver, you cannot begin to fathom how high they're going to go priced in dollars. It's going to be like, how high did gold and silver go priced in the Venezuelan currency? You cannot fathom it. So these guys out there is trying to set a price, 5,000, 10,000. All of them might be completely underestimating what really happens during the hyperinflation, because gold will not be able to be priced in dollars. It's probably going to be priced in one or other form of cryptocurrencies. So this is what we're heading into. We're heading into it fast. It's not going to last real long. The first part is going to be hitting us with the deflation. It's going to be quite severe, and that's when we're going to see the stock market crash. But now the stock market, on the other side of this, when we go into the economic recovery, the stock market's going to take off too. And it's unlimited how high it can go, priced in dollars. You know? And so all of it is going to be a topsy-turvy world for a little while. There's going to be an awful lot of action happening very fast when the whole thing. And the key to all of this is the bond market. It's the key that bursts the credit cycle bubbles. Right now, we're in a bubble economy. Everything's in a bubble. How much debt is priced at, how much the 10-year is priced at, has everything to do with whether these bubbles burst or not. All of the bonds, the bond prices and bond yields have everything to do with how these bubbles burst. These bubbles are going to start bursting. And you've got all kinds of bubbles. The big ones are like real estate. Oh my God, that's such a big bubble. The United States is in a huge bubble, and not in all areas. There's some areas where real estate really hasn't went up that much in the United States, but other areas, real estate, it seems like it's the prestigious real estate. It seems like it's the urban areas and stuff, the places where, places like in San Francisco and places like that the real estate really went crazy, nuts in the United States. But the same way here in Canada. Rural areas in Canada, the houses haven't went up that much, but it's in places like Vancouver, Toronto, you know, where the house prices just went nuts, totally berserk. It's an unreal world we're living in. And then there's China. China basically is one of the things that saved us for so long. You know, they had a lot of savings and stuff. They don't anymore. They've spent it to rescue us from the 2008, the whole thing. You know, I mean, the Chinese have basically sacrificed their economy on the altar of the Western pyre. You know, and they're not in a secure spot right now. They're full of debt. They can't go any further. They've reached the end of the line. They've built their ghost cities at this point. So they're not going to save us this time around. And the Fed's not in a position to save us really either without actually creating an awful lot more debt. So that's what they're going to have to do. In doing so, well, see, there's two routes with this. They could actually default and say, okay, we're going to default on the United States debt. We're going to default on this. No, let the deflation happen. But that means that nobody would get their Social Security check. What do you think would happen? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Of course they're going to give them their Social Security check. But what they're going to do is they're going to make those dollars are not going to be worth much. So your buying power of all of your dollars is not going to buy as much. So basically they're going to be paying you back with worthless dollars. The United States will be out of debt. They'll create a $1 trillion bill. You know? And it'll have the same, by the time this is done, we could be down to the point where a $1 trillion bill is worth the same buying power as a dollar is now. What's that going to do to your bank accounts? You know, probably the biggest value out there right now is probably physical silver. There's really a tight supply of physical silver available to sell for industry and coin and bar demand. A very constrained supply, indeed. And how that supply comes is in the 1,000-ounce bars. They use the 1,000-ounce bars for everything. If they want to make up a whole bunch of American Eagles, they go out and they order a bunch of 1,000-ounce bars, and then they cut them down and make them into the Eagles. Very little waste, almost none. So if they're going to make 1,000 Eagles, it's probably going to take 999 ounces of the 999 Eagles probably out of a 1,000-ounce bar. That little bit of waste. They lose almost nothing. They basically they would run them. I can just imagine in the factory they probably run them through some sort of a hot extruder or something into the round shape of like a tube, and then they cut the tube into little segments, and then they use some sort of a press to stamp them and so on. And there's almost no waste making them, but they use the 1,000-ounce bars, and so when the shortage shows up in physical silver, it's going to show up in the 1,000-ounce bars because that's what they use for everything, industry and everything. So we're in a mess, guys, and it's all getting ready to unfold really quick when that bond rate goes over, the 10-year goes over 3.25%. And I'm going to tell you, it made it halfway there today alone. One more move like today, and we're there. It's moving that fast. So the stuff I've been telling you on here might be getting ready to come true very, very near future. And you might not have that much time left to go out and maybe get yourself some $5 bills and put them away for yourself. To get yourself a bit of bottled water, some canned beans. Quite seriously, there might be a period of, say, a month or 2 months where your ATM machine won't work, or a very long lineup to get to it, with people waiting out in the hot sun or waiting out in the cold weather. And by the time you get to the ATM machine, they say, sorry, come back tomorrow. It's empty. Right? And you're just desperate to get a bit of cash to buy your baby formula or whatever, or your canned dog food for your dog because your dog's starving. Well, hell, if you got some beans at home, you can give him some of your beans. You know, it's some of your bottled water. You can share it with him. But if you don't have any beans at home, you won't even have anything for yourself or your dog. Got to think about these things. And don't think that your debit card's going to work either. Because if the ATMs are down, the debit card's going to be down too. This is the time the grocery store will probably still be open down the street down there. And no lineup. And he's got the dog food and everything you need, but he ain't going to give it to you for free. And you step up to the guy at the counter and he says, where's your, you say, I want to pay debit. And he says, sorry, that's down today. You say, well, okay, let me pay with my credit card. No, can't take that either. He says, all we take is cash today. That's when you haul out your $5 bills. You buy whatever you want. Nobody else is going to be able to buy it because they didn't store any $5 bills away. I mean, it's not like you can't reuse the $5 bills later at some point in the future. You know? I got mine put away and ready to go because I know this is coming. This is coming. It's barreling at us like a train. Thank you guys for listening. And like and subscribe, and we're going to catch you in the next show. Bye-bye, guys.